I don't like to treat typography in that sort of overly technical way. Try to match typographies that have similar rhythms but contradicting main features. There we are. Yo, you like the fit? That's the Huni, bro. For the ones that don't know, this is a Design Dojo stream, a space on my Discord channel where I provide weekly design assignments to hone our graphic design skills on the weekly, and then on these streams I provide feedback to the pics you uploaded to the Discord channel, and by the end of it I'll make my own live. This time the assignment was to make some typographic composition, but the real focus now was to mix type. Try to think of type more like the display approach. I guess it's really nice to try to go for the typographic combinations that really contrast in their most characteristic like feature, you know what I mean? Some really condensed goes well with types that have a bit more negative space, something really modern with something really like vintage. And of course there is a lot that goes into play there. You need to do it a lot to sort of gauge the stroke width, the height of the letterbox, how wide it is, if it's modular, how spread you're gonna put the characters, the interline. But I think it's crucial when learning to set type, you need to do it a lot. I don't like to treat typography, and I know a lot of designers do, in that sort of overly technical way. I always went by feel with typography. And yeah, it's a thing you need to watch a lot of type and pay attention, you know, when you see a nice poster that you like, yo, what's the contrast in the typography? What's like those typographies that I'm seeing and that I'm liking, I'm drawn to them? What makes them click, you know what I mean? There is a lot of observation with typography. So yeah, you need to set a lot of type. We're gonna take a look at some of the entries on the Discord that we have. We have quite a few here. Let's drop everything here. I think the first hanging of the Design Dojo, when you put all of the pieces side by side. When we're doing stuff like this, we're looking collectively at all the pieces. It's really important, guys, that you learn to detach a bit from your own work so you can see it for what it is. Once you achieve that, you'll see, for example, some mistakes are harder to see in your work, but you'll see them in others' work. And once you see it in others' work, you can go, am I making the same stuff? And then you go to your piece and you realize that you are making the same mistakes. Our work has that veil of, it's a bit harder to penetrate, you know what I mean, with a critical gaze than the work of others. Actually critical gaze. I mean, it's because it's easier with our work to just flat out say it's worse, and you look at others' work in a better light, right? But when we're trying to be critical, then it flips, I feel, right? And it's harder to be analytical and actually critical of your work than it is from the work of others, because from the work of others, you don't have the attachment. And also seeing them side by side, you can sort of spot those differences better. You know what's also good? That, for example, this piece on the Discord, when you see it on the cell phone, for example, it looks bad, right? It doesn't look as good, but there is something about being next to other ones that are a bit more developed that lifts the work up, you know what I mean? And makes you perceive it in a bit kinder way. Every piece is composing with each other. So yeah, it's a nice way to look at your work in a different light that when it's just isolated, you know, by itself. Yeah, I want to touch a bit on the ones that I feel are doing some of the correct kind of stuff. For example, this one. Yeah, the point of the exercise really to mix different typographies in a way that created a dynamic composition, right? Picking fonts that had really contrasting main features. You know, you pick a font such as this one, the design one, that has like a nice modularity to it. The negative space, which is the space we have within the symbols, it has like a really like homogeneous like rhythm, you know, it's pretty the same. It's really repeatable, it's really predictable, you know what I mean? Line, 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 it creates this like line pattern, you know? And in this one, it's a pretty irregular, jagged negative space that you get that doesn't go well with the entirety of the other negative space, right? For example, all the swirls here, they are not so irregular. It creates some nice shapes that go well together with the lines, the vertical lines, right? We have like a lot of vertical lines and then like diagonals, right? That go really well with those vertical lines. But in this one, we don't have like that suggestion of direction, you know what I mean? Like, you see that looks completely different than this, you see? This works also, you know, it's a really nice bold font with something a lot more understated, right? I said on the brief that one of the fonts should provide like the vibe, when the other brings like the legibility and sort of the little details, you know? But you can think of it sort of like that. Try to match typographies that have similar rhythms but contradicting main features. Thickness, it's variable stroke or it's a single stroke. It's wide, it's tall, you know, it's really condensed. Yo, this is a nice system that we have going on here. So here we have a lot going on, my guy. I said that try to don't use like more than 3 fonts top. The more fonts you use, you're adding more variables that you need to make like flow together, and it's hard. It can be done, right? But it's hard. So yeah, that actually prevented you for even trying the exercise, right? Because here you tried like a pretty constructivist style of page layout, and really the point of the exercise was to try to make like a neat typographic arrangement. I forgot what I was about to say. On this one, what I would do to make it a bit more out there, let's rasterize it so I can start playing with it a bit. I don't know, let me... Right, I would maybe start seeing what kind of shapes I could find within the text itself and try to push those differences like a bit more. Right, for example, here I could place this like that, right? Maybe a bit random, but let's try to see if I put it like up to here and I can try to make this space that we have here, like this block that forms, make it be the same width at the one at the top, right? So we use the same modularity and the same features of the font to create the elements with which we distort it, you know? So we remain and we retain that sort of modularity that the font already has. So for example, here we have this nice space that I like, so I'm gonna delete this, right? Already here, we have something. I encourage you all to do this. Like grab your own piece, cut it and mash it like this. Like this. I like this sometimes, I think. Right, you see the spacing that I use? This spacing is similar to this spacing, is similar to this, the stroke of the font. Try to find those spaces that the typography already has to see if you can use them as building blocks to modify it, right? And to bring another font in, right? To keep that rhythm. And then you bring something that's really different. I like this, but I need a bit more spacing. And you see as it is, maybe the font is not that great. The contradicting feature, you see how this font has this like slope that goes like this? Well, this font, it has this slope, but it has it like in reverse. It shares this boxy like feel that the type has, but that's easy. We grab it and we make it like so, like extreme. And we put it a little stroke. You see what I mean? And I was literally like playing. A type is something that you need to get a feel for it, but you need to do a lot of this. We went from this. I mean, with these elements, I used the typographies that you use go well together. Like what I used is here, like practically you made it. You know what I mean? Let's take that one to the wall. Let's talk about this one. What's this type? I don't like that type. or at least I don't know if it's working in this particular like size. The spacing of the stroke, the width of the stroke, I don't know if it goes well together with the inner counter shape that the font has. Let me see if I have a similar one. It's not the same font, right? I know. But you can see from this font, oh, also this font is shit, because you need to pay attention to the inner shapes that form the spacing between the characters, because it forms like a little light, right? You see how the counter shape, it looks all over the place. Like we have between the D and the E, we have this little space, then we have this massive chunk of space, then we have like, this is sort of even, the kerning is fucked up, you know what I mean? To sort of fix that from character to character, if you press Alt and then with the arrow keys, you can move them individually. And here there is no science to it really. Like you need to go by feel. Right? One trick that a friend of mine taught me this is like, you know how to blur your eyes? You make the font a bit smaller and then you try to blur your vision a bit, and then you try to see like you see better a bit the space, right? The spacing between the characters. When you see that's a gap that's not uniform, you know, to the entire like composition, then you can adjust that part. I feel that's a bit better. I guess you get the idea, right? That you need to pay attention to this sort of spacing, because when you see those type lookups, that makes you go like, fuck, that's crisp, you know what I mean? It's because they have this really beautiful like balances between the negative space, between not only the fonts, but the characters. There are certain words that just work better. You know what works well? This poster. This poster from Bro, it's crazy. This is peak. But Bro knows what he's doing. Let's just not get too ahead of ourselves. I know that he knows what he's doing. This works. For example, this kind of stuff. You see here that this little slope is just touching the edge. I would edit the font so it goes over and it breaks that line, right? Because here you have all this breakage, all this leakage from the font that's going over the other, you know, so you grab that lateral energy that the other type has and you make it explode, right? You break it really much. Let's talk about this one because it's eyeing me. It's looking at me funny. My thing with this is that this looks like two different pieces. Like it looks like this or like this. Yeah, this national dish, it's creating again that really odd spacing. You can take a look at it like that when you're trying to make like a typographic composition or even a poster. Like you can see at what you're making, like the text and the images, but also try to look at it like at the inverse. Like what's the negative space, how it looks, and if you like it. Like this spacing that we have here is kind of odd. This here also. Like if you're gonna make this be wide, like wide spacing between the parentheses, make it wider, right? Make it more wide or bring the parentheses in completely and make the weight of this A match everything. If it's gonna match, make it match. If you wanna make it contrast, so it looks a lot more refined within the bolder type, make it really refined. Here again, this sort of script font, make it, this could be more like this. You see how you can arrange it. Maybe this doesn't need to be particularly in the dead center. Yeah, this camera is nice, right? Like this composition with the Photoshop in the background. Like that. Let's make the thumbnail. You can sort of start using all the measures that you already have in your piece to make the other elements. So it has like this sort of rhythm and repetition that helps structure the piece a lot, right? You don't need to follow it like millimetrically, but it has like a bit of swing to it. You know, in music production software like FL Studio, there is a feature that's called swing, that what it does is when you start to put the notes and the beats in the timeline, the swing adds a little bit of variation between one and the other, so it doesn't like falls mechanically perfect like in the beat. It has a little bit of swing to it that gives it a bit more of an organic feel. Liking this, the thing with this is that the contrast, it makes me go to Council Shinobi. Like it breaks the flow a little bit, so I felt it should be inverted. Oh, this is another thing to keep in mind. When you're using a stroke, like the entire logic of the font changes a little bit. Now I need to increase the spacing a bit more to compensate for the width of the stroke, you know what I mean? I went on a tangent, sorry. I wasn't feeling the typography really, but I felt it worked for a poster. But I don't know if you saw the one that I did for the post. This one is peak. This one I loved it. This one is peak for me. I love it. That was it, my guys. Hope you liked it and hopefully learned something. If you wish to support the channel further, step by the store, get some graphic design assets, some mockups, some textures. You can also become a patron. They get a lot of really cool perks as preferential feedback on the Discord and on the Design Dojo, 1 monthly free graphic design asset, discount codes, access to my original Photoshop files, upcoming work in progress versions of the next resources that I'll be releasing. So yeah, there is a lot there. And if money isn't really something you can part ways with, don't worry, I understand. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment, share it with a friend, whatever you choose to do, it helps the channel a lot. You already know how it is. Fuck peace, wish you conflict, see you in the next one, ninjas.